Good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you, buddy.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man.
I won't see you before then, so
No,
gotta get
appreciate
that in. And you may remember a couple of years ago, we gave you the award for the best person we've ever interviewed. I'm going to tell you right now, and you're going to like the word I'm going to use, you are a front runner to win it again for next year. You are the best.
Twice.
You might be a two-time recipient.
Two-time recipient. Mate, I'm going to take that. That's my epitaph right there.
But like last time, I'll have to go back to Hollywood and get you one of those $4 statues. And the greatest
I'll take it. I will even buy the statue. I want to save you the money.
Okay.
Sorry, is that influencing the voters? I'm sorry.
Well, there's only one, me. My producer as well. Tell me, is it fair to say this is completely different than anything else that we've ever seen you do?
Yes. Fair to say, absolutely. It was a very different experience. I love doing a film with Jason. Jason Reitman's films, to me, Juno, Up in the Air, they're always fun, they're funny, flawed characters. But this was a departure for him. It's still funny and I think entertaining, but it's this look at 3 weeks of 1987 of this guy running for president who's going to be the next president of the United States. And after this 3 weeks, he never spoke publicly again, pretty much. He left politics forever. So it's a fascinating story, and it gives an insight to how we got to where we are today.
How different is this role than anything else you've ever done?
Well, first of all, it's different because I'm playing a real guy, which I've only done very few times. Really, this is the second time that I've played a real guy where I got to have conversations with the real guy. Patriots Day being the first one where I played Jeff Pugiles. And Bill Dixon, in this case, was very generous with his time, and although we still haven't met in person, on the phone and via email, it was, and I wasn't, trying to do an impression of the guy, and I look nothing like him. We maybe sound a little bit alike because we're both, guys of a certain age from the upper Midwest, but that's where the similarities end.
Well, it was very intimidating, actually, when I got the role. I was, really excited, but then I realized I'm portraying a real person who's alive and who can see my performance, and oh my gosh, I've got to do it justice. So I did as much research as I could. It's funny because there's not a lot of information on Donna out there right now, but I was just so happy with her portrayal in the script. I think that she was written with respect and dignity and with empathy, and I could totally empathize with a woman in her situation. So even though there wasn't a lot of info out there, I was most concerned with just capturing that empathy.
Your character, AJ, is a reporter. And by the way, as a reporter, I know I just cover entertainment, but I will tell you that I am a reporter. It's important.
I think it's important.
But I will tell you.
It's my job.
You did a great job as a reporter.
Oh, thanks, man.
You really went in there, and of course your character is extremely pivotal, I think, to some of the things that happened. What surprised you the most as you played this character?
I had no idea of this about the story until I read the script. No clue. I didn't know who Gary Hart was, which I think is baffling to look back on now, because it is such a pivotal and important part of American politics and media today. So I'm surprised that's not in in history books more, or at least in high school, whatever, just something. I was like, why isn't this discussed more? The biggest shock was just finding out about the story, really.
What a project. I'm curious what sparked this for you. What made you think to take this on?
3 years ago, I heard a Radiolab piece on Gary Hart based on Matt Bai's book. And I have to admit, I was 10 years old when this happened. I didn't really know the story. And the idea that there was a moment in our history when the presumed next president of the United States was found in an alleyway with 3 reporters, and no one knew exactly what to do because no one had ever been there before. I mean, that seemed like a movie I needed to make.
Walk me through the writing process. You have some incredible writers that you worked with on this film. Tell me, as you guys got together, the research that it took. How long did it take to go through all that?
It was a movie co-written by Matt Bai, New York Times Magazine journalist, and Jay Carson, who's the press secretary for Howard Dean and Hillary Clinton. So this is a movie that we wanted seeped in detail. We wanted these rooms to feel hyper-real. We wanted to drop you into the floor of the Washington Post, the floor of the Miami Herald, in the campaign bus, on the campaign plane. So to get those details real, Everyone had to do mountains of research, but no one more than Hugh Jackman, who said to me early on, I never want to feel like I could have done more. And that defines Hugh Jackman.
That is an awesome story. I love hearing stuff. He's one of the nicest guys anyway. But when you hear that he really immersed himself into, that's cool, man.
There was a moment where he had this binder, and it was about that thick, all research on Gary Hart. And I said, are you really going to read all of that? And he said, that's book 1 of 5.
Wow.
And at what point I saw it, it was like this high. It was just a stack of books on everything about Hart, everything about the race, every character in it. And our teams, our production design team, our wardrobe team, had moments where they would go to Hugh to try to get more information. We were all learning about Gary Hart from Hugh.
As you uncovered and unlayered Gary, the person, to play this guy, what surprised you the most about him?
He makes a mean martini.
So did you get to meet him and spend time with him?
Yeah, I did. I'm being facetious. Very, very warm character. I'd heard all about how charismatic he was and how intelligent he was. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a true family man and a very proud American who, I mean, his intelligence is dizzying, honestly, to be around, and he is sharp as can be. But he's a very loyal person. We're still friends to this day. And I call him a friend, actually.
How supportive were your co-stars? Hugh Jackman, who is the nicest guy. I mean, he's just incredible. But it's a serious role.
Yes.
How supportive was he and your director as far as guidance?
Working with Jason and Hugh was a dream come true because I've admired their work, both of them, for so long. I'm such big fans of them. And honestly, there couldn't be kinder, more supportive, genuine, generous people to work with. And then Hugh turns around and delivers this powerful performance. So I don't know how he does it.
What surprises you the most about this story? The fact that, there's so many parallels to what's going on in the world today.
Right.
We won't go down that path. I think people can draw their own conclusions. I certainly did. But as far as what surprises you the most about this story?
I think the thing that I learned, the most surprising thing that I learned when I was filming this movie was how much the media has changed, in these past 30 years. I mean, I was being born during this time period, so I don't have any actual, recollections of this scandal or anything. And so by the time I was even cognizant of the news, it sort of was already, in the 24-hour news cycle. But at the time, it was kind of in its infancy, and I was surprising to learn just how much it's changed.
And also social media and these things.
Yes.
Everybody's a reporter these days. Have you heard if Donna Rice is aware of the project? Okay.
Yeah. Well, Jason told me that he showed her the film. She was one of the first people to see it, and I heard that she loved it. And that just makes me so happy, and she was happy with my performance. It's so gratifying to hear that because she's the critic that I was the most nervous about.
I was going to ask, how do you get ready for something like this? Do you study the campaign? What a unique story this really was. And I'll get to the parallels to today in a second. But how do you prepare for something like this? Do you study the campaign, what they did?
Well, first of all, Jason Reitman was really helpful for all of us in terms of just kind of getting into the sense of 1987. Every day they handed out the newspaper from that day in 1987, the main stories of, the front of the New York Times, and including the sports page and the arts and entertainment and everything, kind of immersing us in 1987, especially for those who did not remember 1987. So that was, I've already forgotten the question you asked me, but that was
how you get ready, and that's a great way to prep for it because it puts you in the mindset. All right, here's the question. If Gary Hart were running for president today, do you think you would have the same ending?
Well, Gary Hart is 80-something now, and I think very happily ensconced in his life in Colorado.
Okay,
so I don't think he's.
What surprised you the most about this story?
Well, just the sort of intricacy of it, and how seminal a moment this was really in the relationship between politicians and the press.
when you found out who your co-stars were going to be, and I want to talk about some scenes in a second because I love the intensity that you bring to the screen along with your co-stars. But the first question is, when you learned who you were starring with, what was your first reaction? This is quite a lineup.
Yeah, it's one of the best ensemble films I think ever. I mean, just because the cast is crazy. I was pretty excited. I'm a fan of everyone in the movie. Everyone. I mean, there are people that I didn't know about until I started working with them, and then I was like, oh yeah, if you're in a movie, I'll see you in that. Hugh Jackman, Vera Farmiga, J.K., Fred Molina. I mean, Mark, Chris. It's Ari Grainer. It's just like an embarrassment of riches. Yeah.
I like that description of it. All right, I want to talk about a scene. You're on an airplane.
Sure.
You're okay with flying, right?
Yeah.
Because your character was really, really you had that expression. I fly a lot, and I see people on planes that have
Oh boy.
yeah, that fear, a little bit of turbulence.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that scene though, the intensity that was there. What was going through your mind as you filmed that particular scene?
Well, I've said I get a lot for free in this movie because I'm like working with somebody like Hugh Jackman who I actually really admire, and I'm doing a scene with them, and I'm like, oh boy, So it's like really exciting, and there's also Jason who can just say the most succinct and clear direction in one sentence. So it was just I was just remembering thinking like this is like one of the best experiences I have ever had on a set.
So if there had been a bubble behind your head, you're delivering the lines, you're delivering the scene, but it would have been like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Oh, you know what? Actually, yes, for sure. For sure. I'd be a liar if I didn't. But also like those like Gorbachev and Reagan floating in my head as well. Because you have to like know like the playing field. Otherwise, you can't really ask those questions. It's just kind of awkward. It's like a little, what? You don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean?
How long did it take you to go through and get the footage? Tom Brokaw, some old nightly news stuff. I love that you worked all that in.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that I was going through and finding all that footage, but the truth is there was an amazing team, first in our production design and art department, then all the way up to our editorial team, who were constantly scouring not just footage of what was happening politically at the time, but every baseball game that you hear, played on the radio was a game that was happening on the day. I mean, we wanted this movie to be accurate and feel as real as possible.
At the screening that I was at here in New York last night, you mentioned that Gary had seen the film. Mm-hmm. What were you there when Gary was watching the movie, first of all?
I was sitting right outside the theater. There's nothing more terrified, I have learned, than showing a film that is about real people to those people themselves.
And it's not the most flattering time of his life.
Yeah, we've shown the film to Gary and Lee Hart. We showed it to Donna Rice. Showed it to the entire campaign team. And it's easy to forget that for them, their first viewing, they're watching a movie, and their first comment all the time is, God, Hugh Jackman is really good, which is true. He's brilliant. It's just not the first reaction I expected. There was a lovely moment where Gary turned to Lee and said, "Is that really how I talk?" And his wife said, "Yes, darling, that's exactly how you speak."
How many accents do you do? Because you've nailed his accent, and I want you to do a Texas accent before we leave here today.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I did do Oklahoma about 400 times, and I wouldldn't marry you nor none of your kinfolk if I could help it. That's a line. That's not to you, by the way.
No, you sound
That's
like my
a line
neighbor.
So I'm not sure how good that was, but that was about 20 years ago I did that one.
It was excellent. You're excellent. I love this movie.
Thank
Always
you,
great
man.
to see you, my friend.
Great to see you too,
Dude,
buddy.
you're awesome.